When Michael Jordan went to surprise kids at Lincoln Elementary School, he spotted someone driving a school bus who changed his life forever. It was Coach Vernon Hayes, the man who believed in Michael when he was just a scared 14-year-old who got cut from basketball. Coach Hayes taught him how to shoot, how to win, and how to believe in himself. Now Michael was rich and famous, but his 72-year-old coach was driving a school bus just to pay his bills. What Michael did next shocked the whole district and made news around the world. What secret did Michael discover about his old coach that amazed him more than winning 6 championships? And how did saying thank you to one teacher end up helping over 50,000 kids across the globe? Keep watching to find out how the greatest thank you in history began with a yellow school bus. The morning sun painted the parking lot of Lincoln Elementary School in golden light. Michael Jordan stepped out of his black SUV and breathed in the crisp North Carolina air. It smelled like home, pine trees, fresh grass, and childhood memories. "Mr. Jordan! Mr. Jordan!" A group of excited children pressed against the school fence, waving frantically. Their faces glowed with pure joy. Michael smiled and waved back. This was why he loved these surprise visits. No cameras, no reporters, just him and the kids who reminded him why basketball mattered. Today, he was here to announce his new youth program, something special for children who needed a chance to dream big. As he walked toward the school entrance, his phone buzzed. Rosa Martinez, his assistant, was calling. "The principal is ready. For you," Rosa said. "The kids have no idea you're coming. They're going to lose their minds." Michael chuckled. "That's the point. Sometimes the best surprises come when you least expect them." He didn't know how true those words would be. Michael ended the call and slipped his phone into his jacket pocket. The parking lot was busy with the morning routine. Teachers hurried to their classrooms with coffee cups and lesson plans. Parents dropped off forgotten lunch boxes. Everything felt normal and peaceful. Then he saw the yellow school bus. It wasn't the bus that caught his attention. It was the man behind the wheel. Michael stopped walking. His heart began to beat faster. The driver had gray hair now, thin and neatly combed. His face was older, with lines around his eyes that spoke of years of hard work. But those eyes, those kind, patient eyes, Michael would know them anywhere. "It can't be," Michael whispered. The man adjusted his rearview mirror, and Michael saw his profile clearly. The same gentle jawline, the same way of tilting his head when he was thinking, the same careful way of moving his hands. It was Coach Vernon Hayes. Michael's legs felt weak. Memories crashed over him like ocean waves. 14-year-old boy, too tall for his age, standing alone in a high school gym. "Son, you've got something special. Let me show you how to use it." Patient hands guiding awkward teenage arms through perfect shooting form. "Believe in yourself, Michael. I believe in you." Coach Hayes had been his first real basketball coach at Riverside High School. More than that, he had been the first adult to see potential in Michael when everyone else saw a clumsy kid who got cut from his middle school team. Now, 35 years later, Coach Hayes was driving a school bus. Michael watched as children climbed aboard. Coach Hayes smiled at each one, calling them by name. A little girl with pigtails dropped her backpack. Coach Hayes climbed down from his seat to help her pick up her scattered books and papers. "There you go, Sarah," Coach Hayes said gently. "Have a wonderful day at school." The little girl beamed up at him. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. You're the best bus driver ever." Michael's throat tightened. This was the same man who had driven across the state to watch Michael play in the state championship. The same man who had cried with joy when Michael got his scholarship to the University of North Carolina. The same man who had whispered, "I'm proud of you, son," after Michael's first NBA game. What was he doing driving a school bus? The bus began to move. Coach Hayes checked his mirrors carefully, just like he used to check the gym to make sure every player was ready before starting. Practice. Safety first. Others before yourself. That was Coach Hayes. Michael wanted to run after the bus. He wanted to wave his arms and shout, "Coach, it's me! It's Michael!" But his feet wouldn't move. His voice wouldn't work. The bus turned the corner and disappeared behind a row of oak trees. Michael stood alone in the parking lot, his mind spinning. Questions poured through his head like water through a broken dam. Why was Coach Hayes driving a bus? What had happened to his coaching career? Was he okay? Did he need help? And the biggest question of all, would Coach Hayes even remember him? "Mr. Jordan?" a voice called from behind him. Michael turned around. Principal Janet Foster was walking toward him with a big smile. She was a small woman with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. "We're so excited you're here," she said. "The children are waiting in the gymnasium. They have no idea what's coming." Michael tried to smile, but his heart was still racing. "Mrs. Foster, I need to ask you something. The school bus that just left, who was the driver?" "Oh, that's Mr. Hayes," she said proudly. "Vernon Hayes. He's been with our district for about 5 years now. Wonderful man. The children absolutely love him. He knows every student's name, even the ones who don't ride his bus." Michael's chest felt tight. Has he always been a bus driver? "Oh no," Mrs. Foster said. "He used to be a teacher and coach, I believe. Spent most of his career at Riverside High School. But he came to us when he needed work. We're lucky to have him. He treats every child like they're his own grandchild." Michael nodded slowly. Riverside High School. That confirmed. It really was Coach Hayes. "Mr. Jordan, are you feeling all right?" Mrs. Foster looked concerned. "You look like you've seen a ghost." In a way, Michael had. A ghost from his past. A ghost of the man who had changed his life forever. "I'm fine," Michael said, though he wasn't sure that was true. "Let's go meet those kids." As they walked toward Highwater, the school, Michael's mind was already working. He needed to know more about Coach Hayes. He needed to understand what had happened, and he needed to figure out how to help the man who had helped him when he needed it most. But first, he had a promise to keep to the children waiting inside. Michael straightened his shoulders and put on his biggest smile. The kids were counting on him to make their day special. He wouldn't let them down, just like Coach Hayes had never let him down. As they reached the school doors, Michael made a silent promise. He would find Coach Hayes again. He would thank him properly, and somehow, some way, he would return the favor that had been 35 years in the making. The automatic doors opened with a soft whoosh, and Michael Jordan stepped inside to change some young lives. He had no idea that very soon he would be changing an old life, too. The gymnasium erupted in screams of joy as Michael Jordan walked through the doors. 200 children jumped to their feet, their voices mixing into one beautiful sound of pure excitement. "Michael Jordan! Michael Jordan!" But even as Michael smiled and waved, his mind kept drifting back to that yellow school bus, to those familiar eyes behind the steering wheel, to memories that felt as real as the cheering children in front of him. "Hello, Lincoln Elementary," Michael called out, his voice carrying across the packed gym. Are you ready for some basketball? Raiders. Children roared their approval. Michael spent the next hour talking about dreams, hard work, and never giving up. He shot baskets with the kids, signed autographs, and took pictures. But part of his heart was somewhere else entirely. It was back in 1978, when everything changed. 35 years earlier, 14-year-old Michael Jordan sat on his bed, staring at the letter in his hands. The words blurred together as tears filled his eyes. We regret to inform you that you have not been selected for the Laney High School basketball team. He had been cut. Actually, cut from the team. All his friends made it, but not him. He wasn't good enough. He wasn't strong enough. He wasn't anything enough. His mother, Dolores Jordan, found him there an hour later, still holding the letter. "Michael, honey, what's wrong?" she asked, sitting beside him on the bed. "I'm not good at anything, Mom," he whispered. "I'm just a tall, clumsy kid who can't even make his school basketball team." Dolores put her arm around her son's shoulders. "That's not true, and you know it. Sometimes God closes one door to open another. Maybe Laney wasn't the right place for you. But all my friends are there. I don't want to start over somewhere else." "Starting over can be scary," his mother said, gently. "But it can also be the best thing that ever happens to you. I heard about a new school called Riverside High. They have a young basketball coach who's supposed to be really good with kids who need a second chance." Michael looked up at her with red eyes. "You think I should transfer?" "I think you should never give up on your dreams. And sometimes, that means trying a different path." 2 weeks later, Michael walked into Riverside High School, feeling nervous and alone. The hallways were smaller than Laney's. The students were different. Everything felt strange and new. After school, he found his way to the gymnasium. Through the windows, he could see the basketball team practicing. They looked good, really good. Maybe too good for someone like him. Michael was about to leave when a voice called out behind him. "You planning to stand out there all day? Or are you going to come inside and show me what you can do?" Michael turned around. A young man was walking toward him, maybe in his 20s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. He wore a simple t-shirt and basketball shorts, but he carried himself like someone who knew what he was doing. "I'm Coach Vernon Hayes," the man said, extending his hand. "And you must be Michael Jordan. Your mom called me yesterday." Michael shook his hand nervously. "Yes, sir. But I should probably tell you. I got cut from my last school's team. I'm not very good." Coach Hayes studied him for a moment. "Son, let me tell you something. Getting cut doesn't mean you're not good. It just means you weren't ready yet. There's a big difference." He opened the gym door and gestured for Michael to follow. "Come on, let's see what we're working with." The Raidity gymnasium was older than Laney's, but it felt warmer somehow. The other players looked up as Michael and Coach Hayes walked in. "Guys, this is Michael Jordan," Coach Hayes announced. "He's going to be joining our team." "But Coach," one of the players said, "we haven't even seen him play yet." Coach Hayes smiled. "I can see plenty just by looking at him. This young man has something special. We just need to help him find it." Michael felt his cheeks burning. "Coach, what if I'm not good enough? What if I let everyone down?" Coach Hayes put his hand on Michael's shoulder. "Michael, I've been coaching for exactly 3 months. You know what I've learned? Every player is good enough. They just need someone to believe in them and show them how to be great." He handed Michael a basketball. "Now, let's start with the basics. Show me your shooting form." Michael held the ball awkwardly, the way he'd been teaching himself in his backyard. He took a shot. It hit the rim and bounced away. "Not bad," Coach Hayes said. "But let me show you something." For the next hour, Coach Hayes worked with Michael on his shooting form. He was patient, encouraging, and never made Michael feel stupid for not knowing something. "See, Michael, basketball isn't just about being tall or strong," Coach Hayes explained, as they practiced. "It's about understanding the game. It's about working harder than everyone else. It's about never giving up, even when things get tough." "Like getting cut from a team?" Michael asked. "Especially like getting cut from a team," Coach Hayes said with a smile. "Some of the greatest players in history were told they weren't good enough, but they kept working, kept believing, kept improving. That's what separates the good players from the great ones." As the weeks went by, something amazing happened. Michael started to improve. Not just his basketball skills, but his confidence. Coach Hayes stayed after practice to work with him. He taught him footwork, shooting techniques, and game strategy. But most importantly, he taught him to believe in himself. "You know what I see when I look at you, Michael?" Coach Hayes said one evening as they finished a late practice. "I see a young man who's going to change the world someday. And I don't just mean in basketball, I mean in life." Michael looked at his coach in surprise. "Really? Really? You have something special inside you, a fire, a determination. Most people never find that spark, but you have it. You just need to learn how to use it." Michael's game improved dramatically that season. He grew 3 inches and gained 20 pounds of muscle. But more than that, he gained something he'd never had before: confidence. Coach Hayes was there for every game, cheering from the sidelines. He was there for every practice, pushing Michael to be better. He was there for every tough moment, reminding Michael that failure was just another step toward success. "Remember, son," Coach Hayes would say, "champions aren't made when the lights are bright and the crowd is cheering. They're made in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, when you choose to keep working even though you're tired." By the end of the season, Michael was the team's leading scorer. College scouts started coming to games. The University of North Carolina offered him a scholarship. The night before Michael left for college, Coach Hayes pulled him aside. "I want you to remember something, Michael," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're going to do great things, bigger things than you can imagine right now. But no matter how successful you become, never forget the lessons you learned here. Never forget to help others the way you've been helped." "I won't forget, Coach," Michael promised. "I'll never forget." Coach Hayes smiled and put his hand on Michael's shoulder one last time. "You're going to change the world, son. Don't ever forget where you came from." Back in the present, Michael blinked as the memory faded. He was back in Lincoln Elementary's gymnasium, surrounded by cheering children. But his heart was still with that young coach who had believed in him when no one else would. The same coach who was now driving a school bus. "Mr. Jordan," Principal Foster appeared at his elbow. "That was wonderful. The children will never forget this day." Michael smiled, but his mind was already elsewhere. "Mrs. Foster, I need to ask you something. That bus driver, Mr. Hayes, do you know where he lives?" "Why do you ask?" Michael looked at the happy children around him, still buzzing with excitement from his visit. "Because I think it's time I returned a favor." Michael Jordan sat in his car outside Lincoln Elementary, his hands gripping the steering wheel. The excited voices of children still echoed in his ears, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. He pulled out his phone and dialed a familiar number. "Rosa, it's me," he said when his assistant answered. "I need you to do something important for me." "Of course, Mr. Jordan. What do you need?" "I need you to find out everything you can about a man named Vernon Hayes. He works as a school bus driver for this district now, but he used to be a teacher and coach at Riverside High School. There was a pause on the other end. Is this about business? A new project? Michael closed his eyes. No, Rosa. This is personal. Very personal. Vernon Hayes was my first high school basketball coach. I just saw him driving a school bus, and I need to know what happened to him. I'll get right on it, Rosa said, her voice becoming serious. Give me a few hours. Michael drove home, but he couldn't sit still. He paced around his house, looking at his trophy room filled with awards and championships. 6 NBA championship, rings, 5 MVP awards, Olympic gold medals. All of it started with a young coach who believed in a scared teenager. His phone rang 3 hours later. Mr. Jordan, I have the information you requested, Rosa said. Her voice sounded sad. You might want to sit down for this. Michael sat in his favorite chair. Tell me. Vernon Hayes is 72 years old. He taught and coached at Riverside High School for 27 years. He was forced to stop coaching in 1985 when the school district cut the sports budget. He continued teaching until 2015. What happened in 2015? Rosa's voice got quieter. His wife, Margaret, got sick. Cancer. The medical bills were enormous. Even with insurance, they couldn't afford all the treatments. Mr. Hayes took early retirement to take care of her. Michael felt his heart sink. And then? She died 5 years ago. The medical debt was so large that Mr. Hayes had to sell their house. He moved into a small apartment and took the school bus driving job to help pay off the remaining bills. Michael closed his eyes. While he had been making millions of dollars playing basketball, his former coach had been struggling just to survive. There's more, Rosa continued. I talked to some people at the school district. Everyone loves him. He knows every child's name on every route. When kids forget their lunch money, he pays for it himself. When they're sad, he checks on them. The other day, he helped a little girl with her math homework while waiting for the other buses to load. Does he have any family? No children. His wife was his whole world. But the people I talk to say he treats every child like his own grandchild. He volunteers at the community center on weekends, teaching kids basketball fundamentals. He doesn't charge anything. He just wants to help. Michael felt tears forming in his eyes. Rosa, I need his address. I have it right here. But Mr. Jordan, are you sure about this? Maybe he doesn't want to be found? Maybe he's embarrassed about his situation. Rosa, this man changed my life. He believed in me when no one else would. If he's struggling, I need to help him. After Rosa gave him the address, Michael sat in his chair for a long time. He thought about all the times Coach Hayes had stayed late to help him practice, all the games Coach Hayes had attended, even after Michael graduated and moved to other schools, all the life lessons disguised as basketball instruction. Never forget where you came from, Coach Hayes had said that last night. Remember to help others the way you've been helped. Michael had tried to do that. His foundation helped thousands of kids every year. He built basketball courts in poor neighborhoods. He gave scholarships to deserving students. But somehow, he had forgotten about the one person who started it all. He picked up his phone and called Rosa back. I need you to do something else for me, he said. Find out everything you can about Coach Hayes' daily routine. What time does he start work? What route does he drive? Where does he go after work? Mr. Jordan, this sounds like you're planning something big. Michael smiled for the first time since seeing that school bus. Maybe I am, Rosa. Maybe I am. The next morning, Michael drove to the school district transportation office. He parked across the street and waited. At 6:30 a.m., he saw Coach Hayes arrive in an old, beat-up car. The car made strange noises and had rust spots on the doors. Michael watched as his former coach walked slowly toward the bus garage. Coach Hayes moved carefully, like someone whose back hurt from years of hard work. His clothes were clean but old. His shoes had been repaired several times. But when Coach Hayes climbed into his school bus, something magical happened. His whole face lit up. He adjusted his mirrors, checked his safety equipment, and smiled like he was about to do the most important job in the world. Because to him, it was. Michael followed the bus route from a distance. He watched Coach Hayes help a little boy with a heavy backpack. He saw him comfort a girl who was crying about a lost toy. He noticed how Coach Hayes waited patiently while an elderly grandmother said goodbye to her grandson. At every stop, Coach Hayes treated each child like they were the most important person in the world. Just like he had treated Michael 35 years ago. That evening, Michael sat in his study with a yellow legal pad, making lists. He wrote down everything he knew about Coach Hayes' situation. The medical debt, the small apartment, the old car that barely ran, the fact that this amazing man was working at age 72 just to survive. Then Michael started writing a different kind of list. Ideas, plans, ways to help without making Coach Hayes feel embarrassed or ashamed. This wasn't going to be easy. Coach Hayes was a proud man. He wouldn't want charity. But Michael had learned something from his former coach. Sometimes the best way to help someone is to make them feel honored, not pitied. Michael picked up his phone and dialed Rosa's number. "Rosa, clear my calendar for tomorrow. I need to make some visits. And I'm going to need you to contact some people for me. This is going to be bigger than just helping one person." "What are you planning, Mr. Jordan?" Michael looked at the picture. On his desk, a photo from his high school graduation with Coach Hayes standing proudly beside him. "I'm planning to return a favor that's 35 years overdue." He hung up the phone and stared out his window into the night. Somewhere across town, Coach Vernon Hayes was probably grading papers or planning lessons for the kids on his bus route. He had no idea that his former student was about to change his life forever. Just like Coach Hayes had changed Michael's life all those years ago. Michael Jordan stood outside apartment 3B, his heart pounding like a teenager on his first date. The hallway smelled like old carpet and cleaning supplies. The walls were painted a faded yellow, and the overhead lights buzzed softly. This was so different from the nice house where Coach Hayes used to live with his wife. Michael had driven by that house on his way here. Someone else lived there now. There were new curtains in the windows and different flowers in the garden. Michael raised his hand to knock, then stopped. What if Coach Hayes didn't want to see him? What if he was embarrassed about his situation? What if he didn't even remember Michael anymore? "Stop being silly," Michael told himself. "He's the same man who taught you to be brave." He knocked 3 times. Footsteps shuffled toward the door. Slow, careful footsteps. The door opened just a crack, held by a security chain. "Yes?" a familiar voice asked. "Coach Hayes?" Michael's voice came out as a whisper. "It's Michael. Michael Jordan." The door closed for a moment. Michael heard the chain being removed. Then the door opened wide. Coach Vernon Hayes stood there in a simple white t-shirt and old jeans. His hair was completely gray now, and his face had more wrinkles than Michael remembered. But those eyes, those kind, wise eyes, were exactly the same. "Michael?" Coach Hayes blinked like he was seeing a ghost. "Michael Jordan? What are you? How did you?" "Hello, Coach," Michael said softly. "May I come in?" Coach Hayes stepped back, his mouth hanging open. Of course! Of course! Come in! I can't believe it's really you." The apartment was small, but spotlessly clean. Michael could see the whole place from the front door. A tiny living room, a kitchen that was just big enough for one person, and a hallway that probably led to a single bedroom and bathroom. But what took Michael's breath away were the walls. Every inch was covered with memories. Team photos from Riverside High School, newspaper clippings from Michael's college games, magazine covers from his NBA career, a framed picture of Michael receiving his first championship ring. "Coach," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. "You kept all of this?" Coach Hayes looked embarrassed. "I know it's silly for an old man to have a scrapbook room, but I was so proud of you, son. I followed your whole career. Every game I could watch on TV, every article I could find in the newspaper." Michael walked closer to the wall. There was the picture from his high school graduation. There was the article about his college championship. There was even a photo of Michael with his own children, cut out from a magazine. "You watched all my games?" "Every one I could," Coach Hayes said proudly. "I would tell everyone at school, 'That's my boy. I taught him how to shoot.' They probably got tired of hearing about you, but I didn't care." Michael sat down on the small couch. It was old and worn, but comfortable. Coach Hayes sat across from him in a chair that had clearly been repaired several times. "Coach, what happened?" "Rosa told me about Margaret, about the medical bills. Why didn't you call me? I would have helped." Coach Hayes looked down at his hands. "Michael, you had your own life to live, your own family to take care of. I couldn't ask you to solve my problems. You're not asking. I'm offering. You changed my life, Coach. Everything I became started in that gym at Riverside High School." "You changed your own life," Coach Hayes said firmly. "I just threw you the ball. You did all the hard work." Michael shook his head. "Do you remember what you told me the night before I left for college?" "I told you a lot of things that night. You said I would change the world someday. You said I should never forget where I came from. You said I should help others the way I'd been helped." Coach Hayes smiled. "I remember. Well, I've tried to do that. My foundation helps thousands of kids every year. But Coach, I forgot about the most important person. I forgot about you. Michael, you don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do." Michael leaned forward. "Coach, do you know what my biggest regret is?" "What's that, son?" "That you never got to see me play in the NBA. Not in person. All those years, all those games, and you were here watching on a little TV screen." Coach Hayes' eyes filled with tears. "Michael, just knowing you made it was enough for me. Seeing you succeed, seeing you become the man I knew you could be. That was better than any ticket to any game. But you wanted to come, didn't you? You wanted to see a game in person?" Coach Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "There was one time," he admitted, "when you won your first championship. I saved up money for months to buy a plane ticket to Chicago. I was going to surprise you." "What happened?" "Margaret got sick that week. The first time. I used the money for her doctor visit instead." Coach Hayes wiped his eyes. "But Michael, I don't regret it for 1 second. She needed me more than I needed to see a basketball game." Michael felt his heart breaking and swelling with pride at the same time. This was the man who had taught him about priorities, about putting others first, about doing the right thing even when it was hard. "Coach, I need to tell you something. I saw you yesterday, driving the school bus at Lincoln Elementary." Coach Hayes looked surprised. "You were there? But how did you know to look for me?" "I didn't. I was visiting the school for my youth program. I saw you in the parking lot, and I couldn't believe it." "Coach, Why are you driving a school bus at 72 years old? Because I love kids, Coach Hayes said simply. And because I still have bills to pay. But mostly because I love kids. They keep me young, Michael. Every morning, I get to see these bright, happy faces. I get to be part of their day. It's not a bad job for an old coach. Michael looked around the small apartment again, at the carefully organized memories, at the man who had shaped his life sitting in a repaired chair, talking about loving his job driving a school bus. Coach, I have a question for you. Anything, son. Are you free tomorrow morning? Around 10 o'clock? Coach Hayes looked confused. I don't drive my route until the afternoon tomorrow. Why? Michael stood up and smiled. Because I want you to meet me at the school district office. There's something I need to show you. Michael, what are you planning? I'm planning to do what you taught me to do, Coach. I'm planning to help someone the way I was helped. I'm planning to make sure that the man who believed in me gets to see just how much that belief meant. Coach Hayes stood up slowly. Michael, I don't need any help. I'm doing just fine. Michael put his hand on his old coach's shoulder. Coach, do you remember what you used to tell me when I was scared to try something new? I told you a lot of things. You said, "Trust me, son." Have I ever steered you wrong? Coach Hayes smiled. I remember. Well, Coach Hayes, trust me. Have I ever steered you wrong? Coach Hayes laughed. The same warm laugh Michael remembered from high school. You've never steered me anywhere, Michael. This is the first time we've talked in 35 years. Then it's time to start, Michael said. 10 o'clock tomorrow. District office. Will you be there? Coach Hayes looked into Michael's eyes for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll be there, son. I'll be there. Michael Jordan didn't sleep much that night. He sat at his kitchen table with papers spread everywhere, making phone calls and writing notes. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't notice. His mind was racing with ideas. At 6 a.m., his phone rang. It was Rosa Martinez. Mr. Jordan, I've been up all night working on your requests, she said. I have some good news and some challenging news. Tell me the good news first. The school board agreed to meet with you this morning at 8 a.m. Superintendent Williams will be there, along with all 5 board members. They're very excited to hear your proposal. Michael smiled. And the challenging news? What you're asking for is, well, it's huge, Mr. Jordan. The legal team says it will take months to set up properly. The architects need time to draw plans. The contractors need time to get permits. Rosa, I don't want to wait months. I want this to happen now. But Mr. Jordan, Rosa, this man is 72 years old. He's been driving a school bus for 5 years to pay off medical bills. Every day we wait is another day he's working a job he shouldn't have to work. Find a way to make it happen faster. There was silence on the phone. Then Rosa spoke quietly. Mr. Jordan, can I ask you something? Of course. Why is this so important to you? I mean, I understand he was your coach, but you help lots of people through your foundation. Why is this different? Michael looked out his window. The sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in soft pink and orange colors. Rosa, when I was 14, I was nobody. I was a tall, skinny kid who got cut from his school basketball team. I felt like the biggest failure in the world. Then I met Coach Hayes, and he saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. That's beautiful, but let me finish, Michael said gently. Coach Hayes didn't just teach me basketball. He taught me how to believe in myself. He taught me that failure is just practice for success. He taught me that the most important thing in life is helping other people. Michael picked up a picture from his table. It was the photo from his apartment wall. Him and Coach Hayes at graduation. Rosa, I've won 6 NBA championships. I've made more money than I can spend in 10 lifetimes. But none of that would have happened without Vernon Hayes. And while I was becoming famous and rich, he was struggling to pay for his wife's medical care. That's not right. I understand, but no, Rosa. I don't think you do understand yet. This isn't just about helping one man. This is about showing the world that we remember the people who help us. It's about honoring the teachers and coaches who change kids' lives every single day without getting any credit for it. Rosa was quiet for a moment. Okay, Mr. Jordan, I'll make some more calls, but you're going to owe a lot of people favors after this. Good. I like owing favors to people who help kids. At 7:30 a.m., Michael arrived at the school district office. It was a brick building that looked like it had been built in the 1970s. The parking lot was mostly empty, except for a few cars belonging to the people who had come in early for this special meeting. Superintendent Williams met Michael at the front door. She was a woman in her 50s, with gray hair and kind eyes that reminded Michael of Coach Hayes. Mr. Jordan, thank you so much for coming. We're honored to have you here. Thank you for meeting with me on such short notice, Dr. Williams. They walked down a hallway lined with pictures of students from different schools in the district. Michael saw photos of kids playing sports, performing in school plays, and graduating from high school. It reminded him why he was here. The conference room was small but comfortable. 5 school board members sat around a wooden table, all looking excited and a little nervous. Michael had that effect on people sometimes. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Williams said, I'd like you to meet Michael Jordan. Everyone shook hands and introduced themselves. Michael could tell they were wondering why he was here. They probably thought he wanted to donate some basketballs, or maybe build a new gym. They had no idea what he was really planning. Mr. Jordan, said Mrs. Patterson, the school board president, Dr. Williams told us you have a proposal for our district. We're very interested to hear it. Michael stood up and walked to the front of the room. He felt the same nervous excitement he used to feel before big games. Thank you all for being here. I want to tell you about a man named Vernon Hayes. He works for your district as a school bus driver. The board members looked confused. This wasn't what they expected. 5 days ago, I saw Mr. Hayes driving his bus route. What you don't know is that Vernon Hayes was my first high school basketball coach. He's the man who taught me how to play basketball. More importantly, he's the man who taught me how to believe in myself. Michael saw understanding start to cross their faces. Mr. Hayes coached and taught in this district for over 27 years. He dedicated his life to helping children. When his wife got sick, he spent everything he had trying to save her. Now, at 72 years old, he's driving a school bus to pay off medical debt. That's terrible, whispered Mrs. Chen, one of the board members. It is terrible, Michael agreed. But what's even more terrible is that we live in a world where a man like Vernon Hayes can give his whole life to helping kids and end up struggling to survive. That stops today. Michael pulled out a folder from his briefcase. I want to propose something that will honor Mr. Hayes and help thousands of children in your district. He handed each board member a packet of papers. I want to build the Vernon Hayes Youth Development Center on the grounds of Lincoln Elementary School. It will include basketball courts, tutoring rooms, a library, and space for after-school programs. The board members flipped through the pages, their eyes getting wider with each detail. The center will serve over 500 children every day, Michael continued. We'll provide free tutoring, sports programs, music lessons, and college prep classes. Every program will be completely free for any child in the district. Mr. Jordan, Dr. Williams said slowly, this is incredible. But something like this would cost millions of dollars. Michael smiled. I'm prepared to donate $15 million to build and staff the center for the first 5 years. The room was completely silent. But there's one condition, Michael added. Vernon Hayes has to be the center's first director, and he gets to help design every program. This center will be built on his ideas about how to help kids. Mrs. Patterson found her voice first. Mr. Jordan, this is the most generous offer our district has ever received. But are you sure Mr. Hayes would want this job? He might prefer to retire. You don't know Vernon Hayes, Michael said with a smile. Retirement is the last thing he wants. He wants to keep helping kids. This will let him do that in a bigger way than he ever imagined. Mr. Rodriguez, another board member, raised his hand. When would you want to start construction? That's the challenging part, Michael admitted. I want to announce this tomorrow morning at a special assembly with Mr. Hayes there. Tomorrow? Dr. Williams looked shocked. Mr. Jordan, projects like this take months to plan. Dr. Williams, I've learned something in business and basketball. Sometimes you have to move fast when the opportunity is right. Vernon Hayes has been waiting 72 years for someone to recognize what he's done for kids. I don't want him to wait one more day. Michael looked around the room at the 5 board members and the superintendent. I'm not asking you to break ground tomorrow. I'm asking you to say yes to changing children's lives. We can work out the details later. The board members looked at each other. Michael could see they wanted to say yes, but they were scared of moving so fast. I'll tell you what, Michael said. Give me 1 day to show you how much this means to your community. If the response isn't what I think it will be, we'll slow down and plan this the normal way. Dr. Williams spoke for the group. Mr. Jordan, if you're sure about this, then we're honored to say yes. But I have one question. What's that? Does Mr. Hayes know anything about this? Michael grinned. He has no idea. I told him to meet me here at 10 o'clock this morning. He thinks I'm just returning a favor to an old coach. You are returning a favor, Mrs. Patterson said with a smile. You're just doing it in the biggest way possible. Michael checked his watch. It was 9:45 a.m. In 15 minutes, Coach Hayes would walk through the front door, expecting to have a quiet conversation with his former student. Instead, his whole life was about to change forever. At exactly 10:45 a.m., Coach Vernon Hayes walked through the front doors of the district office. He wore his best shirt, a blue button-down that was clean and pressed but clearly old. His gray hair was combed neatly, and he carried himself with the same quiet dignity Michael remembered from high school. Michael's heart jumped when he saw his former coach through the conference room window. He's here, Michael said to Dr. Williams. Are you ready for this? She asked. Michael thought about all the times Coach Hayes had asked him that same question before big games. As ready as I'll ever be. Dr. Williams went to greet Coach Hayes, while Michael stayed in the conference room with the board members. Through the glass, he watched Coach Hayes look around the office with confusion. He was clearly wondering why he was meeting at the district office instead of somewhere more private. A few minutes later, Dr. Williams returned with Coach Hayes. Vernon, I'd like you to meet some people, Dr. Williams said as they entered the room. Coach Hayes stopped when he saw Michael sitting at the conference table with all the important-looking adults in business suits. Michael? What's going on here? Coach Hayes asked. You said you wanted to talk to me about something, but this looks like a business meeting. Michael stood up and smiled. Coach, please sit down. I want to tell you about something we've been discussing. Coach Hayes sat down slowly, looking nervous. Michael, if this is about money, I told you yesterday that I don't need any help. I'm doing just fine on my own. This isn't about giving you money, Coach. This is about something much bigger than that. Michael walked to the front of the room, just like he had done an hour earlier. But this time, his audience was the man who had changed his life. "Coach, do you remember what you taught me about basketball?" Coach Hayes looked confused by the question. "I taught you lots of things, Michael. You taught me that basketball isn't just about scoring points. You said it was about making your teammates better. You said the best players are the ones who help other people succeed." "I remember." "Well, Coach, I've been thinking about that lesson for 35 years. And I realized something. You weren't just teaching me about basketball. You were teaching me about life." Coach Hayes shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Michael, I still don't understand why we're here." Michael looked at the board members, who were all watching with excited smiles. Then he looked back at Coach Hayes. "Coach, these people want to offer you a job." "A job? But I already have a job. I drive the school bus." "They want to offer you a different job? A better job. A job that will let you help hundreds of children every single day." Coach Hayes looked around the room at all the faces staring at him. "I don't understand." Dr. Williams leaned forward. "Vernon, we want you to be the director of a new youth center. It will be built right here in our district, and it will serve over 500 children." "A youth center?" Coach Hayes blinked. "But I don't know anything about running a youth center." "You know everything about helping kids," Michael said. "You've been doing it your whole life. First as a teacher and coach, now as a bus driver. You know how to make children feel special and important." "But Michael, I'm 72 years old. I'm not sure I'm the right person for a job like that." Mrs. Patterson, the board president, spoke up. "Vernon, may I call you Vernon?" "Yes, ma'am." "Vernon, we've heard about the way you treat the children on your bus. We know how you learn their names, how you help them with their problems, how you make them feel safe and loved. That's exactly what we need in a youth center director." Coach Hayes looked overwhelmed. "This is very kind, but I still don't understand. Why me? There must be younger people who are better qualified." Michael sat down across from his former coach. "Coach, let me tell you a story. 35 years ago, there was a 14-year-old boy who thought he was a failure. He had been cut from his basketball team, and he believed he would never be good at anything." Coach Hayes' eyes started to soften. He was beginning to understand. Then that boy met a young coach who saw something special in him. The coach didn't just teach him how to shoot a basketball. He taught him how to believe in himself. He taught him that failure was just practice for success. He taught him that the most important thing in life was helping other people. "Michael," Coach Hayes whispered, "that boy went on to win 6 NBA championships. He became one of the most successful athletes in history. But none of that would have happened without that young coach who believed in him." Tears started forming in Coach Hayes' eyes. "Coach, this youth center isn't just a job offer. It's a thank you. It's a way for me to show you how much you meant to me. And it's a way for you to keep doing what you've always done, changing kids' lives." Coach Hayes wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Michael, this is too much. I can't accept something this big." "Why not?" Because I was just doing my job. I was just trying to help a kid who needed help." Michael smiled. "Coach, that's exactly why you're the perfect person for this job. You don't help kids because you have to. You help them because you want to. You help them because you love them." Dr. Williams pulled out a folder. "Vernon, the center will include basketball courts, tutoring rooms, a library, and space for music and art programs. You'll have a team of teachers and counselors working with you. Your job will be to make sure every child who comes through those doors feels the same way Michael felt when he met you. Safe and believed in," Coach Hayes said quietly. Exactly. Coach Hayes looked around the room again. How much would something like this cost? The district doesn't have money for projects like this. The board members looked at Michael. This was his moment. Coach, do you remember what you told me about making teammates better? Yes. Well, you made me better. And now I want to make you better. I'm paying for the youth center. $15 million. As a gift to you and to all the children you'll help. Coach Hayes' mouth fell open. $15 million? Michael, that's impossible. Nobody spends that kind of money on what, Coach? On someone like me. Michael leaned forward and put his hand on Coach Hayes' shoulder, just like his coach used to do to him. Coach, you're not someone like you. You're the man who changed my life. You're the man who teaches children how to be better people every single day. You're the man who deserves to be honored for all the good you've done in this world. Coach Hayes was crying now, not trying to hide it anymore. Michael, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Coach. Say yes to helping more kids. Say yes to being honored the way you should have been honored years ago. Say yes to showing the world what a real hero looks like. Coach Hayes looked around the room one more time, at the board members who were all smiling encouragingly, at Dr. Williams, who was nodding her head, at Michael, whose eyes were filled with love and gratitude. If you really think I can do this job, I know you can do this job, Coach, the same way you knew I could play basketball before I knew it myself. Coach Hayes took a deep breath. Then yes, I'll do it. The room erupted in applause. Board members stood up and shook Coach Hayes' hand. Dr. Williams hugged him. Michael felt like his heart might explode with happiness, but as the excitement died down, Michael cleared his throat. There's one more thing, Coach. Coach Hayes looked at him with wide eyes. More? Michael, I don't think my old heart can take much more. Michael grinned. We want to announce this tomorrow morning at a special assembly with the whole district there. Students, teachers, parents, everyone. Tomorrow? Coach Hayes looked panicked. But I'm not ready for something like that. I don't know what to say to all those people. Coach, you don't have to say anything. Just be yourself. Just be the man who has spent his whole life helping children. Let us do the talking. Dr. Williams stepped forward. Vernon, we've already started calling schools. By tomorrow morning, we'll have over 2,000 people in the high school gymnasium. Everyone wants to celebrate you. Coach Hayes shook his head in amazement. I still can't believe this is real. Michael stood up and extended his hand to his former coach. Coach, do you trust me? Coach Hayes looked at the hand, then at Michael's face. Slowly, he smiled. Have you ever steered me wrong? Never. Coach Hayes reached out and shook Michael's hand. Then I trust you, son. I trust you. As they shook hands, Michael realized something wonderful. For the first time in 35 years, he was the one teaching Coach Hayes something new. He was teaching him that good people deserve good things, and tomorrow the whole world would learn that lesson too. The gymnasium at Central High School had never seen anything like this. By 9:30 a.m., over 2,000 people filled every seat. Students sat on the floor in front of the stage. Teachers lined the walls. Parents and community members packed the bleachers that had been rolled out for extra seating. Coach Vernon Hayes sat in the front row, wearing the same blue shirt from yesterday. His hands shook slightly as he looked around at all the faces staring back at him. Michael, he whispered, this is too many people. I thought you said it would be a small announcement. Michael sat beside him, wearing a black suit and his biggest smile. Coach, trust me. This is going to be perfect. Behind them, News crews from 3 television stations set up their cameras. Word had gotten out that Michael Jordan was making a special announcement, and reporters wanted to be there to cover the story. Dr. Williams walked to the microphone at center court. The crowd fell silent. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to this very special assembly. Today, we're here to celebrate someone who has dedicated his life to helping children in our community." Sit on word. She gestured toward Coach Hayes. Many of you know Vernon Hayes as the kind bus driver who knows every child's name. Some of you remember him as the teacher and coach who spent 27 years at Riverside High School. But today, you're going to learn why Vernon Hayes is one of the most important people in our district. Coach Hayes sank lower in his chair. All these people were here because of him, and he still couldn't believe it. I'd like to introduce someone who has a very special connection to Mr. Hayes, Dr. Williams continued. Please welcome 6-time NBA champion, Michael Jordan. The gymnasium exploded. 2,000 people jumped to their feet, screaming and clapping. The noise was so loud that the building seemed to shake. Michael waved to the crowd as he walked to the microphone. He had played in front of millions of people during his career, but this moment felt bigger than any championship game. "Thank you," Michael said, as the crowd finally quieted down. "I'm here today to tell you about a hero. Not the kind of hero who scores touchdowns or hits home runs. The kind of hero who changes lives quietly, one child at a time." He looked back at Coach Hayes, who was wiping tears from his eyes. 35 years ago, I was a 14-year-old kid who had been cut from his basketball team. I felt like the biggest failure in the world. Then, I met Coach Vernon Hayes at Riverside High School, and my life changed forever. Michael told the story of their first meeting. He talked about the patient hours Coach Hayes spent teaching him fundamentals. He shared the life lessons disguised as basketball instruction. He described how Coach Hayes had believed in him when no one else would. "Everything I became started in that gym with Coach Hayes," Michael said. "He didn't just teach me how to play basketball. He taught me how to believe in myself. He taught me how to turn failure into success. He taught me how to help others." The crowd listened in complete silence, hanging on every word. Yesterday, I found out that Coach Hayes has been driving a school bus for this district. At 72 years old, he's still getting up every morning to help children, still learning their names, still caring about their problems, still making them feel special. Michael's voice grew stronger. "That ends today. Coach Vernon Hayes will never have to worry about money again. He will never have to work a job just to pay bills, because today we're going to honor him the way he should have been honored years ago." Coach Hayes looked confused. This wasn't what they had discussed yesterday. "Coach Hayes," Michael said, turning to face him directly. "Please come up here." Coach Hayes shook his head and pointed to himself as if asking, "Me?" The crowd started clapping and cheering, encouraging him to stand up. Finally, Coach Hayes walked slowly to the microphone, his legs shaking with each step. "Coach," Michael said, putting his arm around the older man's shoulders. "Yesterday, we talked about the youth center. But there are a few things I didn't tell you." Coach Hayes looked at him with wide, worried eyes. "The Vernon Hayes Youth Development Center is just the beginning." Michael gestured to someone in the crowd. Rosa Martinez walked onto the court, carrying a large gift box wrapped in gold paper. "Coach, this district has 500 school buses, but yours is old and breaks down sometimes. That's not acceptable for a man who has given his life to helping children." Rosa handed the box to Coach Hayes. Inside were car keys attached to a keychain that said, "Thank you for believing in me. Coach Hayes, please look outside in the parking lot." The crowd turned toward the windows. In the parking lot sat a brand-new car with a giant red bow on top. Coach Hayes stared at the keys in his hands. "Michael, I can't accept this. It's too much." "Coach, that's not even the biggest surprise." Michael nodded to Rosa again. This time, she brought a manila envelope to the stage. "Coach, you've been living in a small apartment for 5 years, trying to pay off medical bills. That stops today." Michael opened the envelope and pulled out an official-looking document. "Coach Vernon Hayes, you are now the owner of a beautiful 3-bedroom house on Maple Street, just 2 miles from the new youth center. The house is completely paid for. The deed is in your name." The crowd gasped. Coach Hayes dropped the car, keys, and had to grab Michael's arm to keep from falling over. "Michael," he whispered, "this is too much. I don't deserve all this." "Coach, you deserve so much more than this. But we're not done yet." Michael looked out at the crowd of children in the front rows. Their eyes were wide with excitement, even though they didn't fully understand what was happening. "Boys and girls," Michael called out, "how many of you would like a new pair of basketball shoes?" Every hand in the gymnasium shot up. Kids started bouncing in their seats. Well, here's the thing. Coach Hayes has been helping children his whole life. He's helped thousands of kids over the years. So today, every single child in this district is getting a brand new pair of Air Jordan shoes. The gymnasium erupted in chaos. Children screamed with joy. Parents looked shocked. Teachers started crying with happiness. "That's right," Michael continued when the noise died down. "Every child in every school in this district will receive new shoes, courtesy of the Michael Jordan Foundation and the Vernon Hayes Youth Development Center." Coach Hayes was openly sobbing now. He covered his face with his hands, overwhelmed by the love and generosity surrounding him. "But wait," Michael said with a huge grin. "There's one more thing." The crowd fell silent again, wondering what could possibly come next. "Coach Hayes, you've spent your whole life putting children first. You've never been to an NBA game because you always spent your money on other people. Well, that changes now." Michael reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Coach, inside this envelope are 2 tickets to the NBA All-Star Game next month. Front row seats. But you won't be watching from the audience." Coach Hayes looked up, tears streaming down his face. "Coach Vernon Hayes, I would be honored if you would sit on the bench with me as my special guest coach during the All-Star Game. The whole world is going to see the man who taught Michael Jordan how to believe in himself." The crowd went absolutely wild. People were standing on chairs, screaming and clapping. Children were jumping up and down. Even the news reporters were wiping tears from their eyes. Coach Hayes tried to speak into the microphone, but no words came out. He was crying too hard to talk. Michael put his arm around his former coach. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what a real hero looks like. This is a man who has spent 72 years making other people's lives better. Today, we make his life better." The standing ovation lasted for 10 minutes. Coach Hayes stood there, surrounded by the love of an entire community, finally understanding what it meant to be truly honored. As the applause continued, Michael leaned over and whispered in Coach Hayes' ear, "Coach, you taught me that the best players make their teammates better. Today, you're going to learn what it feels like when your teammates make you better." Coach Hayes looked at Michael through his tears and smiled the biggest smile of his life. For the first time in 35 years, Vernon Hayes was the one learning something new about the game of life. The video was everywhere. Within hours of the assembly, someone had posted the footage online. Michael Jordan surprises his old coach became the most watched video on the internet. Millions of people around the world watched Coach Hayes cry tears of joy as Michael honored him in front of the whole community. The comments section filled with thousands of messages from people sharing their own stories about teachers and coaches who had changed their lives. "This made me cry happy tears," wrote Sarah from California. "My third-grade teacher, Mrs. Wilson, believed in me when nobody else did. I wish I could thank her like this. Coach Martinez taught me to never give up," posted David from Texas. "He's probably still teaching kids somewhere. This video reminds me I should find him and say thank you. We need more people like Coach Hayes in this world," added Maria from Florida. "Teachers and coaches don't get paid enough for all the lives they touch." News stations picked up the story. CNN called it the most heartwarming story of the year. ESPN featured it during their evening broadcast. Even international news channels shared the video, calling it a beautiful example of gratitude and giving back. But for Coach Hayes, the real magic wasn't happening on television or the internet. It was happening right in his neighborhood. 3 days after the assembly, Coach Hayes was walking to the grocery store when a car pulled up beside him. A young woman rolled down her window. "Mr. Hayes! Mr. Hayes!" she called out. Coach Hayes didn't recognize her at first. Then she smiled. And he remembered? "Lisa Chen? From Riverside High School? Yes, I was in your math class in 1995. Lisa parked her car and jumped out to hug him. "Mr. Hayes, I saw the video of Michael Jordan's surprise. I can't believe you never knew how famous you were." "Famous?" Coach Hayes laughed. "I'm not famous, Lisa. I'm just an old bus driver." "Mr. Hayes, you changed my life. I was failing math, remember? You stayed after school every day for 2 months to help me. You never gave up on me, even when I wanted to give up on myself," Coach Hayes remembered. Lisa had been struggling with algebra, and her parents were worried she wouldn't graduate. "You did the hard work, Lisa. I just helped you find the right path." "Mr. Hayes, I'm a math teacher now. I have my own classroom at Jefferson Elementary. And do you know what I tell my students when they're struggling?" "What's that?" "I tell them the same thing you told me. Every problem has a solution. Sometimes you just need to try a different way of looking at it." Lisa reached into her purse and pulled out a photo. "This is my class from last year. 28. Kids who all learned to love math because you taught me to love teaching." Coach Hayes looked at the picture of smiling children holding up math certificates and awards. His eyes filled with tears. "Lisa, you did this. These children succeeded because of you." "No, Mr. Hayes. They succeeded because of you. You taught me, and I taught them. That's how it works, isn't it? Good teachers create more good teachers." After Lisa drove away, Coach Hayes continued his walk to the store. But he didn't make it very far before another car stopped. "Coach Hayes! Coach Hayes!" This time, it was Tommy Rodriguez, one of his former basketball players from 1988. Tommy was now a successful businessman, but he still called his old coach Coach Hayes with the same respect he'd shown as a teenager. "Tommy, how are you, son?" "Coach, I've been trying to find you for years. When I saw that video, I couldn't believe it. You deserve everything Michael Jordan gave you and more." Tommy told Coach Hayes about his successful construction company. He explained how the lessons he learned on the basketball team helped him become a leader in business. "Coach, you taught me that success isn't about being the best player on the team. It's about making the whole team better. I use that philosophy every day with my employees." The grocery store trip that should have taken 30 minutes ended up lasting 3 hours. Former students kept stopping to talk to Coach Hayes. Some he recognized immediately. Others had changed so much that he needed help remembering them. But they all remembered him. Dr. Patricia Williams was now a pediatrician. She thanked Coach Hayes for teaching her to be patient with children. Marcus Johnson had become a police officer. He credited Coach Hayes with teaching him about fairness and treating everyone with respect. Jennifer Lopez owned 3 successful restaurants. She said Coach Hayes taught her that hard work and kindness were the recipe for success. By the time Coach Hayes finally made it home with his groceries, his phone was ringing. "Coach Hayes, this is Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about the impact you've had on your community." The next call was from a magazine writer, then a radio station, then a documentary filmmaker. Everyone wanted to hear Coach Hayes' story. They wanted to understand how one person could touch so many lives. But Coach Hayes was more interested in the future than the past. The next Monday, he started his new job as director of the Vernon Hayes Youth Development Center. The building wasn't finished yet, but temporary classrooms had been set up in the school gymnasium. On his first day, 200 children showed up for after-school programs. Coach Hayes stood in front of the group, feeling the same nervous excitement he used to feel before the first day of school each year. "Hello, everyone," he said. "My name is Mr. Hayes, and I'm here to help you become the best version of yourself." A little girl in the front row raised her hand. "Mr. Hayes, are you the same Mr. Hayes that Michael Jordan talks about?" Coach Hayes smiled. "Michael Jordan and I are old friends, but more importantly, you and I are going to be new friends." "What are we going to learn here?" asked a boy in the back. "We're going to learn about basketball and math and reading and science," Coach Hayes said. "But mostly, we're going to learn about believing in ourselves and helping each other succeed." As the weeks went by, something beautiful began to happen. The children in the program started improving in school. Their test scores went up. Their confidence grew. They began helping each other with homework and encouraging each other during basketball practice. Parents started calling to thank Coach Hayes for the changes they saw in their children. Teachers noticed that students in the program were more focused and positive in class. Other school districts began asking questions. How could they create their own Vernon Hayes Youth Development Centers? Michael Jordan visited regularly, not for publicity, but to help with programs and spend time with the kids. He and Coach Hayes would often stay late, planning new activities and discussing how to help specific children who were struggling. "Coach," Michael said one evening as they locked up the center, "do you realize what you've started here?" "What do you mean?" "This isn't just about helping kids in this district anymore. People all over the country are asking how they can create programs like this one. You're not just changing lives here. You're changing the way people think about helping children everywhere." Coach Hayes looked around at the walls covered with children's artwork, photos from field trips, and academic achievement certificates. "Michael, 35 years ago, I was just trying to help one scared teenager learn how to play basketball. And look what happened." Coach Hayes smiled. "I guess that's the thing about helping people. You never know how far it will go." As they walked to their cars, Coach Hayes thought about all the former students who had stopped him on the street in recent weeks. About the video that had touched millions of people around the world. About the 200 children who came to the center every day, eager to learn and grow. He thought about a 14-year-old boy named Michael Jordan, who had walked into his gym feeling like a failure and walked out believing he could change the world. And he thought about how that same boy, now a man, had come back to show him that changing the world was exactly what he had done. One student at a time, one lesson at a time, one act of kindness at a time. The ripples kept spreading, and Coach Hayes was finally beginning to understand just how far they had traveled. 6 months after that life-changing assembly, the Vernon Hayes Youth Development Center was ready for its grand opening. The building was beautiful. 3 stories of bright classrooms, computer labs, art studios, and 2 full-size basketball courts. Above the main entrance, golden letters spelled out Vernon Hayes Youth Development Center, where dreams begin. Coach Hayes arrived at 6 a.m., just like he had every day since construction began. He loved walking through the empty building before the children arrived, imagining all the learning and laughter that would fill these rooms. Today was different, though. Today, hundreds of people would tour the center for the first time. News. Crews were coming. Important visitors from other cities wanted to see what they had built. Even the governor was planning to attend, but Coach Hayes was most excited about the children. As he unlocked the front doors, his phone buzzed with a text message from Michael Jordan. "Ready for the big day, Coach? The whole world is watching." Chapter 3. Hayes smiled and typed back, "The world can watch all at once. I'm just excited to help some kids." By 8:00 a.m., the parking lot was full. Families walked toward the building, many carrying cameras to capture this special day. Children ran ahead of their parents, eager to see the inside of their new second home. The first person Coach Hayes greeted was Maria Santos, a shy 8-year-old who had been in the program since day one. "Good morning, Mr. Hayes," Maria called, out, running to give him a hug. "Good morning, Maria. Are you ready to show everyone your art project?" Maria nodded excitedly. 6 months ago, she had barely spoken above a whisper. Now she was eager to lead tours through the art studio where her paintings hung on the walls. Next came Darius Williams, a 10-year-old who had struggled with reading when he first joined the program. His mother, Mrs. Williams, walked beside him, with tears in her eyes. "Mr. Hayes," Mrs. Williams said, "I have something to show you." She pulled out Darius's report card, all A's and B's. "6 months ago, my son was failing everything," she said. "Today, he's on the honor roll. You saved his future." Coach Hayes knelt down to Darius's level. "You saved your own future, young man. You did the hard work. I just helped you believe you could do it." "Mr. Hayes," Darius said proudly, "I finished reading my first chapter book yesterday. Want to hear about it?" As Darius told him about the adventure story he had read, Coach Hayes felt his heart swell with pride. This was why the center existed, not for the cameras or the important visitors, but for moments like this. Emma Chen, a 12-year-old who had discovered her love for basketball at the center, bounced up with her parents. "Mr. Hayes, Mr. Hayes, guess what?" "What's that, Emma?" "I made the middle school basketball team. The coach said I have really good fundamentals and that whoever taught me did a great job." Emma's father, Dr. Chen, shook Coach Hayes' hand. 6 months ago, Emma was spending all her time playing video games. Now she's active, confident, and making new friends. "You've given us our daughter back." As the morning continued, Coach Hayes met with family after family. Each had a story about how the center had changed their child's life. Parents talked about improved grades, better behavior at home, and newfound confidence. Children showed off artwork, science projects, and skills they had learned in the various Tuites programs. But the most amazing thing was watching the children help each other. When a new boy felt nervous about joining a basketball game, Maria took his hand and introduced him to the other players. When a younger girl struggled with her math homework, Darius sat down to help her work through the problems. When a shy teenager wanted to try painting but felt scared, Emma encouraged her to pick up a brush. "See that?" Michael Jordan said, appearing beside Coach Hayes as they watched the children interact. "See what? That's your real legacy, Coach. It's not this building or the programs. It's the way these kids are learning to help each other. You're teaching them the same lessons you taught me 35 years ago." Michael was right. The children weren't just getting tutoring and playing sports. They were learning kindness, patience, and the importance of lifting each other up. During the official ceremony, Dr. Williams spoke about the center's impact on the school district. Test scores had improved across all schools. Discipline problems had decreased. More students were participating in after-school activities. The Vernon Hayes Youth Development Center isn't just helping the children who attend, she said. It's creating a culture of support and excellence that's spreading throughout our entire community. Mayor Johnson announced that 3 other cities in North Carolina wanted to build their own Vernon Hayes Youth Development Centers. Donations had poured in from around the country to make it possible. What started as one man's way of thanking his former coach has become a movement, the mayor said. The Vernon Hayes model is being studied by educators nationwide. When it was Coach Hayes' turn to speak, he walked slowly to the microphone. The crowd of over 500 people fell silent. 35 years ago, I met a 14-year-old boy who thought he was a failure, Coach Hayes began. Today, I work with children who face the same struggles that boy faced. They think they're not smart enough, not talented enough, not good enough. He looked out at the faces in the crowd, children, parents, teachers, community leaders. But here's what I've learned in my 73 years on this earth. Every child is good enough. Every child has something special inside them. Our job as adults is to help them find it and believe in it. Coach Hayes pointed to Maria, who was sitting in the front row with her parents. Maria used to be afraid to speak in class. Now she leads tours and teaches other children about art. Was she always capable of this? Yes. She just needed someone to believe in her and give her a safe place to grow. He pointed to Darius next. Darius thought he would never be good at reading. Now he reads chapter books for fun and helps other children with their homework. Was he always smart enough? Yes. He just needed someone to show him that struggling doesn't mean failing. Finally, he pointed to Emma. Emma discovered she loves basketball and made her school team. Was she always athletic? Yes. She just needed someone to teach her the fundamentals and encourage her to try. Coach Hayes' voice grew stronger as he spoke. This center isn't about me. It's about recognizing that every child deserves what Michael Jordan had when he was 14, an adult who believes in them completely. Every child deserves a safe place to learn, grow, and discover their talents. The crowd began to applaud, but Coach Hayes held up his hand. I want to tell you about the letters I've been receiving. Letters from teachers in California who are starting after-school programs based on our model. Letters from coaches in Texas who are using our teaching methods. Letters from parents in Florida who are volunteering in their communities because they were inspired by what they saw here. Coach Hayes pulled out a folder from his jacket. This letter is from a woman named Janet Peterson in Oregon. She was a teacher for 30 years before she retired. After seeing the video of our opening day, she decided to volunteer at her local community center. She's now tutoring 20 children who were struggling in school. He pulled out another letter. This one is from Marcus Thompson in Georgia. He's a former college basketball player who started a free basketball camp for kids in his neighborhood. He says our program showed him that sports can be a tool for teaching life lessons. Coach Hayes looked directly at Michael, who was sitting in the front row with tears in his eyes. Michael, you thought you were just thanking an old coach. But what you really did was show the world that when we help one person, we help everyone. When we believe in one child, We teach them to believe in other children. The standing ovation lasted for 5 minutes. But for Coach Hayes, the real reward wasn't the applause. It was seeing Maria raise her hand to ask a question about the science exhibit. It was watching Darius help a younger child with his backpack. It was seeing Emma encourage a new girl to try shooting baskets. As the ceremony ended and families toured the center, Coach Hayes realized something important. He had spent his whole life thinking his job was to help individual children succeed. Now he understood that his real job was much bigger than that. His job was to create helpers. Children who would grow up to help other children. Students who would become teachers, coaches, mentors, and leaders. Michael Jordan had been just the beginning. Now there were hundreds of Marias, Dariuses, and Emmas learning the same lessons. And someday, they would teach those lessons to hundreds more. The legacy wasn't just about one coach or one student anymore. It was about an endless chain of people helping people, reaching forward into a future that would be brighter because of what started in a small gym 35 years ago. 1 year later, on a crisp October morning, Coach Vernon Hayes walked into what he thought would be a small celebration at the youth center. Michael had invited him for what he called a little gathering to mark our first anniversary. But as Coach Hayes opened the doors to the main gymnasium, his breath caught in his throat. The entire gym was packed with people, not just the usual 500 from their community, but over 1,000 faces he recognized from different times in his life. Former students from Riverside High School sat next to children from the current youth programs. Parents from the 1980s shared bleacher space with teenagers from today. A huge banner hung from the ceiling. 50 years of changing lives, celebrating Coach Vernon Hayes. "Michael," Coach Hayes whispered, "what is this?" Michael appeared beside him with his biggest smile yet. "Coach, this is everyone whose life you've touched over the past 50 years. They all wanted to say thank you." As Coach Hayes walked into the gymnasium, he began to recognize faces everywhere. There was David Morrison, his first basketball player from 1973, now a grandfather himself. There was Susan Clark, who had struggled with math until Coach Hayes tutored her every day after school. She was now a successful engineer. In the front row sat Maria Santos, Darius Williams, and Emma Chen from the current program. But surrounding them were dozens of other former students, some now in their 50s and 60s, all there to honor the man who had believed in them when they were young. Dr. Williams stepped to the microphone. Vernon Hayes began teaching in sincerity 1973. Over the past 50 years, he has directly taught over 3,000 students. He has coached over 500 young athletes. He has driven over 1,000 children safely to and from school. The crowd applauded, but Dr. Williams continued. But those numbers only tell part of the story. What we discovered while planning today's celebration is that Coach Hayes' influence reaches much further than anyone imagined. She gestured to a woman in the audience. Lisa Chen, whom we met earlier, has taught over 600 students during her career as a math teacher. Every one of those students learned from Coach Hayes' methods, even though they never met him. Lisa stood up and waved. "Mr. Hayes taught me to be patient with struggling students. I've passed that lesson on to every child in my classroom." Tommy Rodriguez used the leadership lessons he learned on Coach Hayes' basketball team to build a construction company that employs 150 people, Dr. Williams continued. Those employees learned about teamwork and treating people with respect because of what Tommy learned 30 years ago. Tommy stood up from his seat. "Coach Hayes taught me that success means making everyone around you better. I've tried to live that lesson every day." One by one, Dr. Williams introduced former students who had become teachers, coaches, business leaders, doctors, and community volunteers. Each person stood up and shared how Coach Hayes' lessons had shaped not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone they had influenced. Dr. Patricia Williams, no relation to me, Dr. Williams said with a smile, has treated over 5,000 children during her career as a pediatrician. She credits Coach Hayes with teaching her to be patient and kind with scared young patients, Marcus. Johnson has mentored over 200 young police officers, teaching them the same lessons about fairness and respect that Coach Hayes taught him. Jennifer Lopez has created jobs for over 300 people through her restaurants, always remembering Coach Hayes' lesson that success should lift up your whole community. As the introductions continued, Coach Hayes realized something incredible. His influence hadn't just touched the students he had taught directly, it had spread through them to touch thousands of other lives. But Michael had saved the biggest surprise for last. "Coach," Michael said, taking the microphone, "there's something else you need to know. Remember when we announced the Vernon Hayes Youth Development Centers in other cities?" Coach Hayes nodded. He knew that centers were being built in 5 other communities. "Well, that number has grown a little bit." Michael gestured to a large screen that descended from the ceiling. A map of the United States appeared, with red dots scattered across the country. "Coach Hayes, there are now Vernon Hayes Youth Development Centers in 23 cities across America." But that's not all. The map zoomed out to show the entire world. More red dots appeared. Programs based on your teaching methods are now operating in Canada, Mexico, and the United Kingdom. Over 50,000 children are currently enrolled in programs that exist because of your example. Coach Hayes sat down heavily in a nearby chair, overwhelmed by what he was seeing. "But Coach," Michael continued, "the most important number isn't how many centers we've built or how many children we've helped. The most important number is this." A new slide appeared on the screen. The Vernon Hayes Teaching Manual, downloaded 2.3 million times. "Coach, do you remember those notes you wrote about your teaching methods? The manual you created so other communities could start their own programs?" Coach Hayes nodded weakly. "That manual has been downloaded by teachers, coaches, and youth. Workers in all 50 states and 67 countries. Millions of children are learning because their teachers read your ideas about patience, belief, and never giving up on a struggling student." The crowd erupted in applause, but Michael wasn't finished. "Coach Hayes, you always taught us that helping one person creates a ripple effect. Today, I want to show you just how far those ripples have traveled." The screen changed to show a video. Message. A young woman appeared, speaking from what looked like a classroom. "Hello, Mr. Hayes. My name is Sarah Kim, and I'm a teacher in Seattle, Washington. I've never met you, but your teaching methods have changed my life and the lives of my students. Last year, I used your approach to help a struggling student named Jake. Today, Jake is tutoring other children and talking about becoming a teacher himself." The video changed to show a man standing on a basketball court. "Mr. Hayes, I'm Coach Robinson from Atlanta, Georgia. I downloaded your manual 2 years ago and started using your methods with my youth basketball team. We're not just teaching basketball anymore, we're teaching life lessons. 3 of my former players are now coaching younger kids using the same methods you taught me through your writing." Video after video played. Teachers from California, coaches from Florida, youth workers from New York, all sharing stories of how Coach Hayes' ideas had helped them help children. As the final video ended, Michael looked at Coach Hayes, who was openly crying. "Coach, 50 years ago, you started teaching because you wanted to help kids learn and grow. You had no idea that you were starting something that would spread around the world." Michael gestured to the crowd of former students surrounding them. Every person in this room learned something from you, and every person in this room has passed those lessons on to others. Your influence doesn't end with us. It continues through us, reaching children you'll never meet, but whose lives are better because of what you taught their teachers. Coach Hayes stood up slowly and walked to the microphone. The huge crowd fell completely silent. 50 years ago, he began, his voice shaking with emotion, I became a teacher because I wanted to help children believe in themselves. I never imagined that what I was really doing was teaching people how to teach others to believe. He looked out at the sea of faces, some young, some old, all connected by the lessons they had learned and shared. If I've learned anything in my 74 years, it's this. We are all teachers, and we are all students. Every day, we have the chance to help someone believe in themselves. Every day, we have the chance to pass on the lessons that someone else taught us. Coach Hayes paused and looked directly at Michael. 35 years ago, a scared teenager walked into my gym. I thought I was just teaching him basketball. What I was really doing was teaching him to never forget where he came from and to always help others the way he had been helped. He smiled at Michael, then turned back to the crowd. Michael learned that lesson well. He didn't just thank his old coach. He showed the world what gratitude looks like in action. He showed everyone that when we honor the people who help us, we create a culture where helping others becomes the most important thing we can do. The standing ovation began slowly, with just a few people clapping. Then it spread, like ripples in a pond, until every person in the gymnasium was on their feet. As the applause continued, Coach Hayes realized that this moment represented something beautiful. Every person clapping had been helped by someone else, and every person clapping would go on to help others. The chain would never end. After the celebration, as the gymnasium emptied and people said their goodbyes, Michael and Coach Hayes stood alone on the basketball court where so many children had learned to believe in themselves. Coach, Michael said quietly, thank you. For what, son? For teaching me that the greatest gift we can give someone is the belief that they can achieve their dreams. And for showing me that the greatest way to honor that gift is to give it to others. Coach Hayes put his hand on Michael's shoulder, just like he had done so many times 35 years ago. Michael, you gave me something even more valuable. What's that, Coach? Coach Hayes looked around at the pictures on the walls. Photos of thousands of children who had learned and grown in this space. He thought about the centers being built around the world, the teachers downloading his manual, and the countless children whose lives would be better because of a simple belief that every person deserves someone who believes in them. You showed me that a teacher's work never really ends, Coach Hayes said with a smile. It just keeps growing, one student at a time, forever. As they walked toward the exit together, the student and the teacher, the young man and the old, they both understood something profound. They had started as two people connected by basketball and belief. They had become part of something infinite, an endless chain of helpers helping helpers, reaching into a future that would be brighter because someone, somewhere, had decided that believing in others was the most important work of all. The lights dimmed in the gymnasium, but the legacy would shine forever. Coach Hayes showed us that one person believing in another can change the world. His story reminds us that kindness creates ripples that never stop spreading. Where are you listening from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I love seeing how far these inspiring stories travel. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. When you subscribe, You're helping us spread more stories of kindness and hope to people who need them most. And speaking of spreading kindness, there's another incredible story waiting for you right now. Click on the video appearing on your screen to discover how one small act of generosity changed everything for a family in need. Remember, you might be someone's Coach Hayes today. Believe in others, help when you can, and never forget, the smallest act of kindness can create the biggest change. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.